the Declaration of Independence. We're all about independence, individual rights, pulling up ourselves by our own bootstraps. It easily runs contrary to how a lot of us were raised. I was raised to be very independent. I was on my own since 17. Once I graduated from high school, I never went home. I never looked back. I provided for myself. As a result, I've been always very independent, very self-reliant. My kids, when I tell them that story, find it amazing because they can't believe that anyone could possibly care for themselves prior to college. But I said, that's nothing. My grandfather was orphaned at age 13. He took care of himself since age 13 and was a railroader by age 16, which is where probably that self-reliant streak came in our family. It is rare that I hire out for anything. I've been taking care of my house for 31 years, and I've only hired out 3 times, one for electrical, twice for plumbing, and every time I did, I felt like a failure because I said, you should just man up and tackle this. You can do this. So being reliant on God for everything does not come natural to me, and I don't think it comes natural to any of us. It's actually this self-reliant, I got this attitude, actually has been passed down to us for generations. It is probably the first dysfunctional pattern passed down to humanity. It began with Adam and Eve, who finally struck out on their own and thought they can't trust God for direction, so they went and did it their own way. They became independent of God, self-reliant. And this pattern has been passed down to all of us. So it is not easy for us to rely on God for everything. It seems if we do, that we're weak. In fact, non-Christians think Christians are weak because we need a crutch. We can't deal and handle with life on our own. We need assistance, but they don't need assistance. They got this. They can do this. Christianity, if they really knew it, really isn't a crutch. If they really knew it, they'd be even more appalled because it's a life support system. It's not just a crutch. Most people feel pretty competent. They feel smart enough to make decisions on their own. They feel competent to run their own lives. They don't need a shepherd for everything. As the song goes, at best what they need is an assistant to help us out in a pinch, or we need someone on a retainer who we can call on when we need. And does that capture you? Is that how you feel? Is that how you function in your life? And how is that working for you in your life? Knowing God as shepherd is different than having God as our shepherd. Because having God as our shepherd means we depend on him for everything. And to do that, you first have to admit that you need a shepherd, that you need to lean upon God for everything. And admitting it is not enough. You have to take one more step. You need to listen to your shepherd. It's like if you have a doctor. How many of you have a doctor and you hear what the doctor says to you? You need to lower your salt intake, and you say, yeah, okay, I got that. I need to lower my salt intake. But how much harder is it actually to do it? Especially when you get creamy, buttery mashed potatoes or corn on the cob. You got to put butter and salt on it, right? You can't eat it any other way. So it's one thing to admit, yeah, I got to lower my salt intake. Yes, I listen to my doctor. It's another thing to actually do it. Listen to him. The same thing is true with God. It's one thing to say, yes, I admit I need a shepherd. It's another thing to lean upon God for everything, to listen to what he says. But that's what it means to have God as our shepherd. It means we have to obey him comprehensively, experientially, and joyfully. I'm going to go through all 3 of those. What does it mean to obey God comprehensively? It means you can't pick and choose. You can't say, I'll do this, but I'll not do that. I'll believe this, but I'll not believe that. It means obeying everything he teaches. It means believing everything he teaches. And it means getting rid of the things he tells you that you need to get rid of in your life. It means opening every room of your heart and every room of your life, even those things in the basement that you're hiding that no one else knows about. It means opening even that to him and allowing him to do an extreme makeover. I don't know about you, when I was on my own, cleaning my own house, sometimes I got behind. And when I got behind and people were coming over, I would close off certain rooms. so people wouldn't see. The house looked wonderful, except for those rooms. But I wouldn't let anyone in those rooms. They were a do not enter room. And do you have any do not enter rooms in your life with God? Are there things you kind of rope off you don't want God to kind of ticker with? Do you have this attitude that, hey, even though I know what he says to do in a certain area of my life, I don't care. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I don't see any harm in it. I don't think it's realistic in my life. To be frank about it, I don't really see any benefit in it because I see some people who are obeying God in a certain area and their lives are worse than mine. I see that some people who aren't obeying God in a certain area and they're just peachy keen. So I don't see any benefit in it. And is that your attitude with God? Are there rooms in your life that you marked off do not enter? If so, you are not treating God as your good shepherd. You are not having God be your good shepherd. He is simply merely an assistant to you. And you're losing out on all the benefits of his leadership. Think about it. If Jesus is the creator, if he's who he says he was, and he holds and sustains the universe by the word of his mouth, do you really only want him in your life as a personal assistant or someone you can keep on retainer? Think about it. One of my favorite verses is, it's my life verse, actually, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your, and I'm not saying this is easy to do. I struggle all the time in lots of areas. Trust in the Lord, though, with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. What does it mean by acknowledge him? It means open up every room and say, okay, God, what do you have to say? What do I want to do? I'll listen to you. I'll obey you. You can't have his direction until you learn to lean in on his shepherdness in your life. A great example of this is Elijah. Now, I might be stealing the women's thunder in this one, and I don't know if I'm going to ruin one of their Bible studies, but did you know what Elijah did on the last day of his life? It's recorded in 2 Kings chapter 2. Does anyone know, what did he do on the last day of his life? He gets up, he goes to the Bethel when he preaches, he then goes over to Jericho and he preaches there, then he crosses the river Jordan and resides west in the Western Territory, and that's how he finished his day. What it tells you is he did nothing unusual. He was simply going by his normal schedule. He didn't live before God any different when he's living before God unseen as he will be living with God seen. He's about to live with God in the seen world, and he changes nothing in his life. Would that be you? I don't know about you. If this is the last day of my life, I'm not coming into the office. I'm sorry. I'm not preparing a sermon. I'm not answering the door. I'm not answering the phone. It's not business as usual. I'm going to do things differently. I'll probably talk to my closest friends. I may mend some bridges if there's bridges to be mended. I might fly someplace, see some things I always wanted to see. Or I might jump out of an airplane or a hot air balloon or take a hot air balloon ride. I won't jump out of a hot air balloon, okay? I'll take a ride in a hot air balloon, though. I'll probably prepare the best meal of my life, a little nice surf and turf. I'd probably take a good look at my life, make sure there's no unfinished business. But it would definitely not be business as usual, but it was for Elijah. Because he walked in such obedience with God, he didn't have to make any changes. He had no unfinished business with God. I think that's incredible, amazing. He really lived out Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He didn't need surf and turf like I would because he knew he was about to feast at the table of God. He didn't need to cross off things off his bucket list because he knew he had all eternity to do, all the things he've always wanted to do. There was more time. That's what it means to live in obedience to God comprehensively, and Elijah is a good example of that. So I hope you can take the study. You know, and too bad didn't have a guy studying Elijah. They'd been cool. How about experientially? I was going to say existentially, but that was like too highbrow. So experientially, what does it mean to have God in your daily life, that you're conscious of him moment by moment, day by day? Brother Lawrence called it the practicing the presence of God. The Apostle Paul calls it praying continually. It's interesting how Middle Eastern shepherds led their sheep. They led them by the word of their mouth. They would speak, and when they speak, the sheep would lift their heads and they'd go towards the sound of the shepherd's voice. Sometimes they didn't say anything. They'll just chirp or they'll sing or they'll whistle. And when the lamb would hear a chirp or a whistle, they know, they recognize the shepherd's voice, and they go in his direction every time. Kind of reminds you of what Jesus said in verse 4. And in fact, this is another picture. Yeah, that's how they lead. They go in the front, they make little noises, and the sheep follow them obediently, comprehensively. In verse 4, when he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. It's like the hymn, where he leads me, I will follow. Yeah. And does that describe your life? The sheep are always attuned to the shepherd's voice. They're always listening for it. I love that imagery. Always having this ear waiting to hear, to listen, and to obey. It's a great picture of discipleship. Is that possible, though? Is that plausible? I think it is. I think we do this in other areas of our life. Every time I go into a new city, when I get a new calling and go to a new area, I just am absolutely lost. I feel like a fish out of water. I can't make sense of the roadways at all. So I'm always getting lost. So as a result, I got a GPS. At that time it was a TomTom, but now it's a GPS. Now it's a cell phone. And I follow it religiously. I always put the address in, and I never got lost. And I depended upon people for everything. I didn't know where to shop, what was the best grocery store, what was the cheapest grocery store, where to get the gas from, where to shop. What doctor should I get? What dentist should I get? So I asked people's advice for everything. I leaned upon everyone for everything. And then what happens to us all is we get cocky. All right, I get to know the area. I know the area. I lived here long enough. I know how the roads work. I know how to get there. I don't need a GPS anymore. I don't need to depend on anyone because I know this whole area. I got it in the back of my hand, and it's then that I got lost the most. Because I stopped referring to the GPS. I thought, I got this. I know where I'm going, and I didn't. One time, I was looking for a restaurant, and I knew for sure it was on Locust Drive, and I went up and down Locust Drive 6 or 7 times. I know, where is this restaurant? I can't find it. And my wife leans over and says, can you stop for directions? No, I was dating someone. Can you stop for directions? And I said, you don't know who you're talking to. I am a file. Files do not ask for directions. I'm a man. Men don't ask for directions. I got this. And I drove up and down for 2 hours until I finally stopped and asked someone who knew the area better. And they said, it's just up 1 block parallel to where you're at. It's on like Shepherd Street or something. I forget the name of it. But it would have been so much easier in my life if I actually leaned in on those who knew better. And that same thing was true with us. We would do so much better in life if we leaned more on God and depended on him more and to walk in obedience to him. So here's a good practice then. Every day when you get up, for me, this is how I'm reminded to make sure I'm very daily, like a sheep, I keep my ears open to God's voice. Get up each day and just think through it. Consider the challenges you're going to have and prepare a response. Pray about your day. Take God with you. Have an ongoing conversation with God, or at least keep him at the back of your mind. Keep your ears open and attentive to what he might be saying to you. That way, if you come across an annoying person, rather than reacting to them, maybe you respond. Or you might ask in your mind, God, how do I respond to this person? Or if someone drives you off because they're driving recklessly, rather than rage and make them pay for it or get up on their bumper, maybe it'll help you slow down and say to yourself, does it really matter for me to soothe my hurt ego? Does it really matter that little couple seconds that he's ahead of me? Not really. Life is so much precious. Maybe this is an opportunity to develop patience, because patience can save your life. It can save the lives of others. I can't tell you how many people I know have lost their lives because of impatience, or have taken the lives of others because of impatience. If you work on a team, maybe just as you approach your team, as you work with your team, maybe ask God, hey, how can I encourage this person? How can I help them thrive? What can I do to build in their lives and show the love and grace of God, or help them thrive in their workplace? If you receive an unexpected praise, or make sure if someone else is involved in that project, you give them the credit as well and give God the glory as well. I know there was a time in my life where I didn't take compliments well at all. I couldn't receive them. I would either ignore them, or I'd say something self-deprecating, or I would just, in the back of my head, I said to myself, I wish that were true, but I know it's not. I had a lot of people preface compliments by saying, now don't let this get to your head. And if they really knew me, they knew I wouldn't let it get to my head, because that was not my struggle. My struggle was the opposite. I didn't take it in. It took me a long time in my life to actually simply receive a compliment and say nothing and just graciously receive it. Take seriously what Jesus said in John 15:5. Apart from me, you can do nothing. In each day, lean into his shepherdness. Ask God for help every day. Begin each day with a prayer. Lord, help me today. End the day with thanking him for what he did. Get into his word, just 10 minutes a day. The shepherd leads by the word of his mouth. Let him lead you by his word. What does it mean to obey God joyfully? Because joy in Christianity, for me, just didn't really fit. Hey, it's only, what time is it? I got like 45 more minutes. This is wonderful. The stopped working. What time is it anyway? I don't have an idea. What time where are we at? 11 o'clock. It's at 11. It's 11 o'clock right now? Oh, okay. I'm going to have to make this next week part deux. All right, I'll end with this one. What does it mean to obey God joyfully? Because I always thought it was just, Christianity is you obey all these rules. Actually, it's not like that at all. Ephesians 1:18 says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in the holy saints. And did you catch it? I always thought the verse said that God was our treasure. We treasure him. But he says, no, we are his treasure. And that's actually true, and it fits the shepherd metaphor Jesus uses for himself. Middle Eastern shepherds